Are you ready to explore the exciting tech world like never before? Welcome to Better You, the podcast where we dissect the latest in business, technology, and startup trends, all with a keen focus on growth. So buckle up and get ready to stay ahead of the curve. Let's make you a better you.
Folks, welcome to another episode of Better You. And as you guys know, the theme of the podcast is BTSG, Business Technology, Startups, and Growth. Today, I have Olivia with me on the show. And Olivia right now is in Brussels. And I actually envy her life because she's in Brussels, then she's going to come back to California, and then she's going to move around. This is exactly what I'm trying to tell my partner. Hey, because she's from Switzerland, I said, hey, can we move to Germany for 6 months and then 6 months in California. So, Olivia, again, thank you so much. I think what we can do is we can start with your introduction, but I just want to set the context for this episode that we are going to focus heavily on ethics and AI. And Olivia, you have done an amazing job on writing a couple of books. I really want you to talk about your books. And one thing I found out through your LinkedIn, there is value canvas that you created. It's funny because I was in my previous episode, I was talking to a person, Noel. Noel is also heavily focused on AI and ethics. She's the one who introduced me to you. And I want to set this example for the audience too. Well, people generally ask me, "Hey, how do you find people for your shows?" And my philosophy in life is very simple. If you want something, ask for it. The best is yes, worst is no. If you raise a hand for help, people will show up. And this is exactly, I got connected with you the moment Noel said, hey, you should connect with Olivia. I reached out to you, and Olivia, thanks for being so kind, getting on the show and making time for me.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be here, Raj. And I love that sentiment of if you need help, if you're curious, if you want to know something or need something, ask for it. There's no harm in asking. Well, I guess I can give you my quick background if that would be helpful, and we'll start from there. So I try and keep this short and sweet. I think my bio is getting longer and longer by the day. It feels like it's becoming its own novel in and of itself recently. But if you boil down all of my different pieces, I am an AI strategist. So my background is in AI ethics. But when it comes to AI, I'm really focused on how do we use our human values as drivers for innovation when it comes to either the adoption or development of this technology. I do that through many different facets. So I am an independent consultant. I advise, I offer a whole suite of trainings and workshops. I do a lot of professional speaking in this space. I have one current book and another one in the works. I lead a professional network of responsible AI practitioners. The list kind of goes on and on. I am an Olivia of many trades, let's say, but it all boils down to how do we drive AI innovation for human impact?
Yeah. Um, that's actually very loaded line, AI innovation with human impact. And I think this is where I want to start the conversation. I was listening to
Yeah.
your TED talk, and I think you did a brilliant job explaining humanity, AI, and many other things. I highly recommend the audience to look at your TED talk. Amazing stuff. You know, um, sure. So AI is here, generative AI is here. People are already using the word AGI, which is we're going to start talking in 6 months or so. And I think the way I want to start this, I want to focus on the core discussion, and then we will navigate more towards your value canvas and books. So, uh, the question I have, there is so much confusion on the responsible AI. I think it would be great to hear from you as an expert. What is your definition of responsible AI?
So for me, responsible AI is good business practice. When we first started transferring artificial intelligence into industry, so bringing it out of academia into something that we were productizing, it was this wild west of what's good practice. What does it mean to collect and store data? What does it mean to build models? What does it mean to bring in feedback from your users to understand the impact that's happening on them? There wasn't this standard. This is what it means to do AI well. Now we've had enough time. We know what to do. We know operationally how to do AI well. It just happens to be called responsible AI. So I kind of shortcut some of these conversations of responsible AI is the right thing to do and it's good for society. Yes, but the reason we do it is because it's best business practice at the end of the day. It's like being a responsible adult. We do things as adults, like we do the dishes, we vacuum, we, um, you know, pay bills to make sure the house is still functioning. We're being responsible adults. Same thing with AI. We have certain practices that need to be done in order for AI to function at scale. And those are responsible practices.
Yeah, and this is my challenge. My engineering background, I have to execute things. I have to build something to understand how does it look like. And, for me, it's all theoretical stuff. Sure, as you said, pay bills, follow the law, follow the rules, you be a good citizen, and so on. When it comes to AI, today, let's say if I go to ChatGPT, I go to Claude, I go to multiple other large language models, I'm giving them information, getting the information based on the information, I'm acting on it. As a user, I'm still a little struggling that where do I should pay attention to the responsible AI, or how should I say, oh, you know what, this large language model send me this response, and the other one send me the other response. I should compare it, see the bias opinion, see something into it. I don't, as a consumer, we do not spend too much time, especially when AI is going to get more commodity, like it's going to go to my grandma or grandpa, they're going to start using it. I don't think they will be able to understand that behind the scene, those co-pilot product, they might be using two different large language models and they are behaving differently. If it comes to, when it comes to meeting the road or practicality of the responsible AI, what do you think? What's going to happen in the next couple of years? More practical responsible AI.
Yeah. Well, right now you're talking about one kind of layer of responsible AI, which is from the consumer's perspective. So you as an individual, how do you engage with this technology? And that really comes down to your relationship with that technology. So for example, for me as a responsible AI practitioner, I know when I'm engaging with these large language models, I know not to enter certain types of data because of privacy restrictions. I know to check my work, meaning not to take anything at face value, but to actually fact check. I know that these systems are producing information that is kind of the aggregate information. It's not the end all, be all, this is the correct statement. But I've been trained to watch for that. So I have been able to establish that kind of relationship that enables me to really use these tools. I also have the approach of I'm not going to use these large language models or these kind of generative AI tools to replace things and work that I find joy and purpose in. So as a writer, I don't use LLMs for any of my books. I do use LLMs for my marketing material though. So I have determined what place and time does my use of AI match my intentions for what I'm trying to accomplish. That's on an individual basis. And that individual basis, that consumer basis of responsible AI, one of the key factors there is AI literacy. I happen to have a high AI literacy because of my work, because of where I was born and raised, because of my career. I have high literacy, which means I have the ability to determine for myself a lot of my relationship with AI. And I know when to put my foot down, I know when to draw the line, and I know when to push it forward. I know when to try more. But my grandmother, for example, still trying to explain the concept of AI too. So that understanding, that literacy level, that's going to be a huge contributing factor to the consumer level of responsible AI, of being able to have that relationship. And a lot of that comes from just empowering people to say, you are still in control of your relationship with AI. This technology is not happening to you. You are deciding how to engage with it. That's on the consumer level. The other part of responsible AI is within a company setting. So strategically, if I am engaging, say, with Copilot to, write an email, even in my work, then the responsible AI practices there is for the company to determine when and where and how can you be engaging with these models. So for some companies, it's completely fine to work with ChatGPT and use it, say, from an engineer to be able to use it to strengthen your code or ask for different prompts to understand, to find different features or so on. For other companies, especially companies in highly sensitive fields, you cannot engage with foundational models. You have to engage with the company's narrow model. That's for the company to understand the company's responsible relationship with these tools. So that future that you're talking about for responsible AI, both on a consumer and a company level, comes down to what's the right relationship? What relationship do we need to define? What are the boundaries of that relationship do we need to define for us, for this specific context?
Yeah, that makes sense. Olivia, that actually raises the very important point, which I'm seeing as I work with a lot of enterprise customers. There's a tension between innovation and the overall responsibility. My CIO asked me to deliver a AI-related product, and now I have to go download a bunch of tools and code and so on, and I have to build together a framework to do something on AI. Now, suddenly security comes in. Security says, hey, you can't do these things. And I'm saying, hey, I need to innovate. So as you work with so many leaders, what do you advise? How should we put that bridge between business, technology, innovation without creating too much tension because of AI and responsibility?
Yeah. So this is actually the exact focus that my next book is being written on, and that I find fascinating, because we often contrast responsible practices, ethics against innovation. These are blockers for innovation. For me, they're actually innovation enablers in two different ways. The first way, when you're setting these responsible AI practices in place, and when I'm talking these practices, a lot of them, it's frameworks, it's policies. There's nothing really sexy about it. It's pretty straightforward. But those kind of frameworks, we'll just use a framework as an example, those security frameworks where you have to check the box of, yes, we can use this tool because it passes our security check. If those are designed in a way that aren't overburdensome, I have seen frameworks over-designed, which do become counterproductive and counter to innovation just because of the amount of time spent on completing a framework. The framework should be pretty straightforward. Those kind of frameworks create the boundaries in which creativity can thrive. So there's a study done by Harvard Business Review that focuses in on how constraints actually lead to higher quality and quantity of creativity. Because we as humans, we struggle when we're given a blank slate of paper. So like if I were to hand you a blank slate of paper and said, Naj, draw me a picture, you're going to have to sit there for a while and go, okay, I don't know, let me look around me and I'll draw a tree, I guess. And you don't bring in many details. You don't really have direction. You still end up with a picture, but there's no depth. There's not much depth there. Now, instead, if I say, Naj, draw me a tree in the middle of autumn with a bird perched on it, I've given you these constraints, and that's now forcing you to bring a new level of creativity to meet those constraints. So these responsible practices work in the same way when implemented with innovation at the forefront, where you create the constraints that drive further creativity, where you're setting a new standard. And that instead of just having to make sure that the features set works, you're ensuring that the features work, the model's correct, you've got everything in alignment with your company mission, and so on. And it's meeting these objectives. It's creating that more depth to that creativity and innovation. That's one way. The second way, which is my little niche of the world, is how do we take our human values, so things like creativity, compassion, empathy, resilience, how do we take those values and use them as drivers for innovation? So if I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, I'm creating a new AI product or tool, or even a simple feature, and I want to enable my end users to be more creative or to have more curiosity, then I am giving myself, again, a new direction for innovation that's in alignment with the end users, that human impact at the end of the day. So it's not just technical innovation for the sake of technical innovation, it's technical innovation with a purpose. And that purpose drives, again, innovation in a different direction.
I absolutely love what you just said. You said, but that constraint that we are bringing, that gives this peace of mind to folks, technologists, business folks, that we can release more AI apps, more AI products with security, quality, and quantity. Right now, I can put together a POC, but I am afraid to go into production because I didn't follow those constraints, because I know there is something wrong at the security level. But if we do AI with responsibility, with some kind of framework, it gives me peace of mind that now I can release more AI products. And Olivia, actually, that brings to this conversation, which I'm personally very excited. The reason is, when I was talking to one of my previous episodes with Noel, I said, I'm sure there's a calculator. And this is where your name came up. I said, Noel, I'm sure there's a calculator where I can go feed some variables, and it should tell me, oh, these are the things you need to do as part of the AI and ethics. She said, oh, you need to go watch Olivia's talk. She talks about it. Now I want you to tell me more about the value canvas that you have created.
Well, that's brilliant. Okay, I have to thank Noelle for being a secret spokesperson for me. I didn't realize I had. That's amazing. Yeah. So the values canvas, it's a tool that I've developed. It sits at the center of my first book, and it's essentially a holistic management template. So when you're thinking responsible AI, when you're thinking how do I embed values like security, these are very abstract terms. Where does this actually go into place? Like, what does that actually mean practically from an operator's standpoint? What does this mean? That is where I started the development of the values canvas, because I was constantly being asked, where do I start? What am I missing? Very, very practical questions. So the values canvas, are you familiar with the business model canvas?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, actually, I downloaded your value canvas too. I'm looking at it right on the side of my screen.
Hey, there you go. So it's got 9 different elements. It's divided into 3 pillars. Each pillar has 3 elements. And each of those elements are impact points. It's divided across people, process, technology. So this is also an important point. AI is never just a technology challenge. It's also down to the process and the people behind it. So this is holistic. That's the holistic part to it. But those 9 elements, those are the impact points that you practically translate these values into action. So let's take security, for example, and let's talk about security on a people layer. You want to ensure that security is being translated practically into your technology, into your AI solutions. Well, on that people layer, you need to ensure that your people understand, they're educated on what is security at the very basic form, but the different methodologies, the different ways that security needs to be incorporated. For example, don't put private user data into ChatGPT. Pretty straightforward. Can't tell you how many times I've had to tell people that, but that is making sure people are educated, making sure they're motivated. So are the motivations tied to certain KPIs that encourage your people to engage in the education, to engage with how to embed security? And then are they talking about it? Have you broken down the communication silos so that people know what initiatives are in place and they know who to talk to if they have questions around, hey, does this align with security? That's just the people layer. And though it's educate, motivate, communicate, those are your 3 impact points. If you have a touch point in all 3 of those and we're talking still about security as a concrete example, for security, you are translating security from this vague abstract topic into something very practical strategically for your people. And that's just one pillar. We didn't even cover process and technology. But the whole purpose around that values canvas is you can map exactly what is going on within your company or in your own practices. You can map where your values are going into place, what you're missing. You can easily see the gaps. And then you can also build a database of resources. So if you need multiple frameworks, then from implement, that's another one of the elements, implement, hey, I've got a whole database of these frameworks that I've already set aside that I can default to. So it's speeding up and it's creating a very concrete way to understand how my values are going into action practically in a way that I can see it all at once. I can get a visual on something that's very abstract and in so many different facets of the business in one single place.
Nice, very nice. Um, I think in technology, you did talk about, in the same people process technology, you did talk about data and documentation. Uh, Everybody's craving for data. They want more Gen AI ready data sets so that they can deliver the value faster. When it comes to AI and ethics, as you work with so many leaders, what is those suggestions, advice that you give to the C levels that, hey, when you start building out your AI applications, watch out when you start bringing data sets to the large language models to enhance the base model. What would be your advice to those leaders?
Yeah. So first and foremost, especially in the larger companies, data practices are a mess, and that's being nice in terms of that description. So when it comes to, and I'm talking more on the enterprise level, even before engaging with these models and starting to build, say, even narrow models, let's say, narrow use cases, getting your data practices solid and secure, meaning knowing where your data is coming in, the standard of data labeling and cleaning, how long you're holding that data for. These are all things relevant actually towards regulations like GDPR, so data privacy regulations, but how long you're holding that data for, who has access to that data. These are all data governance practices. Making sure that you have that data governance strategy to start. Then when it comes to engaging with those models, what I often advise leaders is for every data point that you're introducing another weak point. You're introducing another weakness. So yes, you can go the big data route where you collect as much information as you can and you try all these different directions. But for every data point that you're introducing another point of weakness that can either introduce a bias, can introduce a security risk, can introduce an adverse effect simply by these introductions of these data points. So that need to get as much data as fast as possible, understanding the underlying tones of that is, yes, but you are taking on significant risk in that approach. So are there other ways to do it with less data? Because if you do less data, higher quality, then you are both long-term, much more sustainable, but less of a security risk at the same time. Instead of that, more data, the better. Instead, what quality and what correlations, what information is actually necessary to getting us the information, the outputs that we need.
So I spent a lot of time in data. Data is actually my expertise because I started my career as an Oracle database, then moved over to big data, worked for companies like Hortonworks, saw Hadoop going up, saw Hadoop dying, and so many other things. And you're absolutely correct. It's not, in this case, it's not about the volume or the quantity. It's more about the quality of the data. And this is where, as I talk to my customers, we use this term Gen AI ready data set. And then Gen AI ready data set does not have to be a petabyte of data. It just have to be a quality data where you can just start building your AI apps, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard the term Gen AI ready data set yet, but I really like that. It gives the right kind of mindset of what you're looking for. Sorry to interrupt there, but I wanted to say I hadn't heard that term before, but I really like how you call it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think it's easy also to explain. And and then one of the most important things which is happening right now in my conversations because of my enterprise experience is governance. They're saying, wow, Neeraj, you're saying all this stuff. Hey, vector database, this and that. Have you guys figured out how to do access control or governance at the vector level, pre and post, so that when me as a salesperson comes in, I'm asking about some stuff to the prompt should say, oh, you don't have access to this. I'm not going to give you this information. Or you have access to this. I'm going to take care of the bias information and I'm going to encrypt the information that you're not allowed to see. I think there's so much happening in that side of the world, the whole data governance and data security. Olivia, I'm going to change gears. I'm going to come back to the industry leadership because you are one of the top people which I am following on LinkedIn when it comes to AI and ethics. And you are also involved into so many initiatives. And I think, if I'm not wrong, yes, if I'm not wrong, I think one of the initiatives you have this Women Shaping the Future of Responsible AI. I really want you to explain to the audience, what is it? How did you start it? How do you get involved? If somebody wants to get involved, how can she, I don't know, but there's a room for a man, he or they can get involved.
Oh, wait, there's room for everybody. So the Women Shaping the Future of Responsible AI, WSFR.ai, I usually call it WSFR for short. So I am the Responsible AI ambassador, and I helped co-found it. The woman that leads it right now, her name is Dr. Julia Stem. She's a brilliant founder, brilliant leader, and is doing an amazing job of pushing this initiative forward. This all came from a rainy day conversation between the two of us in a cafe here in Brussels, where we sat down. We had been on a panel together probably about a month before, and we'd worked together for a couple of years now at this point, on a few different initiatives. But we sat down, we were reflecting on that panel, because one of the questions that we had been asked on the panel was, what is the first word that comes to mind when you think about women in specifically responsible AI? It was very, very niche, let's say, panel, but what is the first word that comes to mind? And the responses of the other panelists were all along the lines of like challenging and, resilience and a lot of like fighting words of, we have to make our stance and make our space. But for me, I was sitting there, I'm like, the word that comes to mind is leadership. Because where I'm sitting, the other thought leaders, the other movers and shakers that I follow and subscribe to and work with in responsibility and ethics are all women. And I mean, I've been in this space for a while. And even early days, I remember sitting down with colleagues back then going, do you notice this as well? It's mainly women that are leading this. And it was a surprising factor to us. But the fact of the matter is, with responsible AI, there's a certain layer of empathy that's required. And I'm not saying that only women are capable of it. What I'm saying is, from a young age, empathy is more nurtured. That layer of empathy is a value that is more nurtured in women. And I think that lends a huge factor to the leadership that is being shown by women in this space. So coming back around to WSFR.ai, Julia and I said, hey, we want to start recognizing some of these women. So we started this initiative of an awards series. And so the nominations are actually open right now. They're open till November 20th, and it'll be an annual award. We have 5 different categories. And the idea there is to nominate women that are leading in these spaces. So AI and learning, AI democracy, peace, media, very specific categories, but to showcase and highlight women that are doing just impressive work in AI in these different facets on those responsible foundations. So to get involved, you can nominate the first woman that comes to mind as well when you think about responsible AI or even AI. You can nominate. You can also follow along. Like I said, WSFR, it's the first awards series this year. It's going to be an annual awards series. And we have plans in the future to be able to start getting some sponsorship in for some moonshot research in these different categories as time goes, as we get the ball rolling.
You know what? I actually have to agree with you because I loved my mom and my mom was my role model. And look, I don't want to make a more debatable statement, but actually you pointed out something very important. All the conversations that I'm having on the AI and ethics, all of them are women. I never had, and again, sure, this is a debatable statement I'm about to make. I never had an AI and ethics conversation with a male coworker or a male professional. it's always like, yeah, like if I talk to somebody, yeah, she's involved, or that person, and she's also that person, like her is involved. This is crazy because you are actually right. It goes back to patience, empathy, and many other things which women has a higher quality than men. This is my personal take on this. So actually, very good point, and I'm going to pay very close attention to this. The why men are not involved into AI and ethics. Actually, that can be another topic to talk about in detail.
There you go. And there's some great men at work in this space, and it's not saying that only women or only women have these attributes. For me, it's I think what it is as women, we grow up and we're taught to immediately think about how the other person's feeling in a situation. And when it comes to AI ethics, you have to think immediately about the end user. You have to think immediately about the person at the end of the AI. And so it's a natural thought process for us that isn't necessarily isn't necessarily established or nurtured, say, in male counterparts from childhood. So it's like it's the female superpower coming to light here.
I love it. Female superpower. Um, so you are in Brussels, and help me to understand how are you seeing the AI ethics, the whole differentiator between US and Europe? And because GDPR Europe, I think, is more strict or stricter than US. That's what I think.
Yeah. And we just had the EU AI Act come into effect earlier this year. Companies need to be in compliance with it by 2026. So we have this almost holding pattern in between twilight zone right now, where we're waiting to see exactly how the AI Act is followed. Now, there's a difference between compliance and AI ethics. What I'm seeing in Europe, though, is because of the AI Act and the expanse and strength of that act, it has channeled all of these conversations that were quite rich and in depth around AI ethics, around that innovation side, like I was talking about. It's channeled those conversations to solely focus on the compliance factors. And the compliance factors are important, but that's a small little pocket of this entire ecosystem. So for someone like me, where I don't necessarily work on compliance, that's not really my specialty. I know what laws you need to follow, but I'm not going to be the one doing compliance checks. I sit on the strategic side. I sit on the innovation side. For me, that means that my work here in Europe is much more narrowed at the moment. So although in Europe, when I talk about values and having these societal values, that's a more common conversation in Europe. It's not a common conversation now in the technology field in Europe, in the technology industry in Europe. So for me, this is actually the first time that the US is starting to open up the opportunity to lead, which is probably a little bit scandalous to say with Brussels, because I know there's a lot of push here saying, Europe, we want to be the leaders in ethical AI. It's such a holding pattern and hyperfixation on the compliance at the moment on the European side, versus the US is saying ethics is important now, responsible AI is important, but we need to figure out how to do this in a way that we can continue at our pace of development. There's more potential there for that innovation side to open up than there is currently in the European markets.
I see. Yeah. You know, when OpenAI came out, and I still remember, I think it was 2016, 2017, it was openai.org, and Musk was involved. And when I looked at the vision of Musk, what he was saying at the time, that openai.org needs to exist so that we can have a governance and compliance and ethics around AI. Now, it's not a non-profitable company anymore. It's a profitable company, OpenAI, because they removed the .org piece, I believe. And as they are the first one who came with this whole chat GPT concept in 2021, I think, and totally changed the way of thinking of people. What's your take on OpenAI and any other company you think, in addition to OpenAI, playing a huge role, either driving the innovation when it comes to ethics, or going in opposite direction, and they should be taking a U-turn and bringing more compliance, more ethics into AI?
Yeah, I think, oof, OpenAI is a hard topic because they had good intentions at the start. It was the right intentions. They had that foundation of ah, we need to do this with the guardrails in place from the start. Then OpenAI made the decision to unleash a giant thought experiment on the world that the world wasn't necessarily ready for. And I'm not saying that that was necessarily good or bad. I think it was a pivotal moment. The challenge with it, and the part that I would push back on, is the narrative that OpenAI has contributed to around AI, meaning the constant, it's fear-mongering really at the end of the day around AI of AI is going to take over and we're going to have all these problems and we have AI overlords and like, look, we can create a poem on a PB&J sandwich on ChatGPT, therefore AI is going to take over the world. It's that narrative that this technology is out of our control that I would push back against, because it's not. ChatGPT exists in the ChatGPT universe, meaning we don't have to use it if we don't want to. And I know this sounds a little bit counterintuitive with the amount that companies are adopting a lot of these generative AI tools. It only exists in the digital sphere as long as we keep it in it can only exist in the digital sphere. We can connect pieces to that digital sphere that have significant impact. But unless we humans are making those connections, all we have is a chatbot. So it's how we are interacting with it. So the part, again, that I'm pushing back with OpenAI is it is, it's actually pretty bold. I've never actually, I don't usually make bold statements, especially around OpenAI, it is their responsibility to have better literacy around what their tool is capable of. And instead of having that crucial literacy part where you are talking users through about, do not use this as emotional support. We're seeing suicides because of that. Or understand that this is not going to replace your work in these X amount of ways. Or understand that you cannot use this as a search because of these reasons. There's less focus on that literacy of what this tool, what its limitations are. And instead, there's more focus on that fear-mongering that it has no limitations and that we're going to be subservient to it someday. And I'm painting in broad brushstrokes here, but it's that narrative that's making such an impact on users, both in terms of adoption, because now we have this fear around AI, but then also in terms of misconception and misuse of the technology, because the limitations of it aren't communicated to the users. And we need to know the limitations so that we can make decisions off of those limitations with them in mind.
No, I agree. Transparency and going back to the grandpa and grandma concept or the idea, some kind of disclaimer, some kind of education is very important. Like for example, if I'm a first-time user of ChatGPT or any of the prompt, if there is a pop-up, some kind of notification, hey, be careful what you're going to see, so and so. I know there's some stuff they said, but it's not very clear because we are looking for an answer to our question and we just stick to that and then we take the information and start acting on it.
And the way that it's presented is this kind of omnipotent being in a way. So me as a user, like I said, I have a high AI literacy. I know I push back and I know how to, but even some of my friends, my age, friends that grew up with technology, that know how to use it, that even work in AI, but don't necessarily have the same literacy level that I do, they'll sit there and they'll question themselves. Instead of saying, hold on, that doesn't sound right, let me research. Instead of questioning the system, they turn back and question themselves. And that's where we start to see some of those problems. It's not omnipotent. It doesn't reason. It's a fantastic predictive model. It's a fantastic word calculator, but it doesn't reason like people do. And there's a difference. And keeping that respect for how humans reason, and instead focusing on how do we complement that with these tools, not replace it. That's the part that I think really could be done different and better.
Absolutely agree with you. Olivia, as part of the closing of this episode, I really want to talk about your first book, your second book, and then those who can see Olivia, I want to talk about your hat with the groceries on it, and then want to talk about when are you coming to San Francisco so that we can hang out. So let's start with your book first. So what's your first book?
So my first book is called Responsible AI. I know, shocker, but it's Responsible AI, Implement an Ethical Approach in Your Organization. Bit of a mouthful of a subtitle there, but it's pretty much a playbook. It is a playbook on how to design an AI strategy built on responsible foundations. From an operational standpoint, it's looking at that people, process, technology layer. It's looking at how do I understand what values I need that are necessary for me to have success in the market? How do I get those into place? Strategically, who's involved within a company? What's the engineer's role versus your CMO's role? Everyone has a role to play in this. So it gives that entire map. That's the first book. It's dense. I've only had one person say that it's bedtime reading, and I question his sanity. I still don't understand why that would be bedtime reading, and I wrote the damn thing. It's chock full of use cases, examples, solutions. It goes over the values. This is a tool. It's about as practical as you can get, and it answers that question: where do I start, and what am I missing when it comes to AI?
I think that goes back to what I was talking about, the calculator. Now, as part of the promotion of this episode, I am going to attach the links of your book because I'm very excited, because this is exactly what I am struggling with, that how to create the center of excellence when it comes to responsible AI, and who to put in the middle, and then who should be surrounded by this people or this group, then they can take care of the AI and ethics.
I think that's chapters 11 and 12.
Nice. There you go. All right. What's the second book, which is coming up?
So the second book I'm really excited for, because you heard me talking about it a little bit. I sit in my own little world where ethics meets innovation. And that truly, I did the first book. The first book was all about structurally, how do we get things in place so that we can actually do some stuff with this technology. This second book, I'm looking at specifically, we'll say right now, the 7 virtues of AI, meaning what are those core human values that we use to drive innovation. And the whole sentiment behind this book is coming from the fact that we've reached this point where we seem to have technical innovation for the sake of technical innovation. We're iterating, and it's fascinating what we can do. But at the same time, I am constantly faced with these conversations, both in work and in my personal life, where people are saying, it's shallow. Like, where's the connection? I feel like there's something missing. What are we missing? This isn't what we wanted. And we're having trouble trying to put our fingers on it. And for me, what I've boiled it down to is we've disconnected technical innovation from human impact. So while we continue to innovate on the technical side, we've kind of put to the side of, well, we'll figure out what the human impact is after. So in order to design for our values, making those the innovation drivers, I want to flip it on its head, where we start with the human impact layer, because technology does not happen in a bubble. How someone experiences an AI solution also includes a business model, use case, marketing from the company, the brand. All of that fits into the picture. So instead of just focusing on the technology, shifting our attention onto what is the human experience, what is the impact that we're trying to create, and basing that impact on our values that matter to us. So I want to be more curious in life. I find purpose in being a curious person. Great, let's start there. how do I reverse engineer curiosity into innovation in AI? That's really where this next book is focused on. I know I'm talking about it in vague terms. I'm actually in the process of some really early stages of some research rounds with this. So this one's a little bit further out on the horizon, but it'll be another practical facing, but really along those lines of, how do we drive AI innovation with actual purpose behind it?
Yeah, I think last time when you mentioned to me on our introduction call, the way I understood it's more about AI and humanity, which I am very excited about it because, there's a lot of stuff that we can learn from those books. So, okay, so what's up with this groceries cool hat? Tell us more about it.
So, I picked this hat up in New York because I was walking by the store and I saw groceries on this baseball cap, and it made me laugh because it looks like it should be some fancy, like Gucci, Balenciaga, some type of fancy baseball cap, promoting a brand, or even like I've seen tech startup hats that have a baseball cap with this plain of lettering, promoting something, selling something. And this hat is promoting groceries. One of the most, exactly. We all need it. I mean, you can't argue with it. It's groceries aren't something you get necessarily excited about, but it's a necessity. It's like, yeah, I agree. Groceries are good. And it cracks me up. And so it's I don't know, it brings me joy when I wear it. I've started wearing it more often.
I have to no, it is very unique. And when I saw it first, I'm like, oh man, I think there must be a story behind it. There is a story, but I agree with you. All right. So when I you in San Francisco, we need to hang out. And what's the best way to get hold of you if somebody wants to talk about, booking a show or getting you more advice from you or reaching out to you for any speaking gigs? What's the best way to
Yeah.
get hold of you?
So I split my year between Brussels and San Francisco. Typically, you can find me in San Francisco in the winter and in the summer, although I've been floating more often through San Francisco. So, as we can celebrate the new year together in January.
That'd be awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I
No,
agree. We
seriously,
got to
yeah.
toast to the world of AI. So, and I'll wear my groceries cap, I promise. And then,
I will bring the hat of called
yes,
bread.
perfect, done. We're gonna
All right.
but to reach,
Your email address, your LinkedIn email, can I share it in the episode
please
description?
do. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Sometimes I take a little while to respond there. If you're interested in having me come speak or my services or advising services, reach out through my website. It's oliviagambelin.com. There's forms all throughout the website that you can fill out. That my team has a faster response than I do. So that's an easier way to contact me.
Nice.
But I do eventually respond on LinkedIn if you just want to chat more about questions in responsible AI or AI in general. That's my door's always open.
Oh my God, I love it. All right. Olivia, thank you so much for making time. Looking forward to seeing you in December this year. You have
Of
to make
course.
it happen. And as we make more progress on your second book, AI and Humanity, would love to have you back on the show to talk about the
Oh,
second book.
yes. That one's going to be fun.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Raj.
Olivia.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Better You. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into today's topic and found some valuable insights to help you on your growth journey. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and share Better You with your friends. Together, let's continue exploring the exciting world of tech and business. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and keep growing.